I can tell my bird joke. Okay. Here's this fellow went into a bird shop, and he wanted to buy a bird, but he didn't know anything about birds, so he started looking at the little tags on their feet. And so he looked at the little tag and said $4.95. All over his shop it was $4.95. So finally, over at just one little corner, he had one little bird. He found it was $136.50. And he says, "Wow!" So he goes up to the counter and says, "Buddy," he says, "that one must be something special." He says, "How do you know?" He says, "Because everybody, all the other birds are $4.95, and that one's $136.50." He says, "Man, you're pretty intelligent." He says, "That bird, it can sing and it can talk." He said, "Well, that's the one I want." And he says, so he pays him $136.50, and he goes home with him. The next day, he comes packing back the bird, and he sets the cage up on the counter, and he says, "Listen," he said, "that bird doesn't sing and it doesn't talk." The guy says, "Well, it did it here at the stop." He said, "Well, it did it in my house." So he says, "Well, did the bird peck on its bell?" He says, "What bell?" He says, "You didn't get it a bell?" He says, "No, I didn't get a bell." He says, "Well," he says, "man, you've got TV, you've got radio, and all kinds of things. That poor little bird has got nothing." He said, "Well, that sounds a lot. How much is a bell?" He says, $6. He says, $6? He says, "Okay." So he gives him $6, and he goes home. He says, next day he comes packing back, and he says, "Wait a minute." He says, "That bird," he says, "didn't sing and didn't talk." He says, "But it did peck on the bell." He said, "Well, did it climb the ladder?" He says, "What ladder?" He says, "You didn't get a ladder?" He says, "Well," he says, "I understand." He says, "You're the customer, I'm the salesman. I should have told you you need a ladder." He says, "You get all kinds of exercise. You walk up and down the streets and you can run and jog." He says, "Poor little bird's got nothing to do." He says, "Well, that sounds logical." He says, "How much is the ladder?" He says, $11. He says, "Okay, here's your $11. So he goes back home. Comes back the next day, and he says, "Listen," he says, "this bird didn't sing and it didn't talk, but he did peck on the bell, and he climbed the ladder." Guy says, he says, "Did he look in the mirror?" He says, "Oh," he says, "now you're going to tell me I need a mirror." He says, "No, you don't need the mirror." He says, "The bird needs a mirror." He says, "You got all kinds of mirrors." But he says, he says, "The bird looks in the mirror. He sees another mirror, bird in the image in the mirror." He says, then he thinks he's got another bird to talk to, and he'll sing and talk to you. He says, "Okay." He says, "How much is the mirror?" He says, $16. He says, "Okay, here's your 16." He goes home. Next day he comes back, and he says, "Listen, this is getting frustrating." He says, "That bird doesn't sing and talk." He says, "Man, I know it because I stayed home from work all day and watched him. Got up on my ladder and watched him all day." He says, "He pecked on his bell, he climbed his ladder and looked in the mirror, but didn't sing and talk." Guy stopped for a second. He said, "Did he swing?" He says, "Oh," and I looked. He says, "Oh, how much is a mirror? A swing." He says, "25. He says, "Take your 25, give me that swing." So he goes home. Next day, he reappeared. He says, "The bird is dead." He says, "What do you mean the bird is?" He says, "Listen, I can tell the bird is dead. His little feet were sticking up in the air, and he's dead. He's not moving." He says, "Well, what'd you do to him?" He said, "Listen, I was proud of that little bird." He said, "That bird that got up this morning, I took the cover off the cage." He says, "He was hopping around, he was just singing and everything." And he said, he looked, and he said, he went over and he pecks on his bell, and he climbed his ladder. About halfway up the ladder, he stopped and looked in the mirror. He said, "I'm not seeing birds." He says, "Smile, but I swear this bird smiled." He said, then he climbed all the way up that ladder. He jumps over to his little swing, and he's swinging back and forth. And he just stopped for a minute, and he looked at me. He says, "They didn't sell bird seed, huh?"